everyone, and welcome to Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin, and today I'll be discussing Revenge of the Creature from 1955. Alright, so now let me share the description of this film from Criticlist. In a tributary of the Amazon, a monster, half man, half fish, is captured and placed in a reservoir in a Florida national park to be observed by scientists. So, this is a sequel to The Creature from the Black Lagoon, and so now let me break down my thoughts on the plot. So the plot, I gave it a 2 out of 5. I think the story is interesting. The idea of it having a creature being, amongst us, right? Kind of like King Kong or Jurassic Park that we see nowadays. It's a very interesting idea, but I think the romantic scenes with a very silly plot point there with all the humans, they're so bad and cheesy. I almost wanted the creature to win. I almost wanted him to kill everybody, which is so dark, right? But um I couldn't care less about any of the characters. I thought they were super disinteresting. There's no Beauty and the Beast type storyline that you see in a lot of these Universal movies. It's just the creature attacking the people, and they're people we don't really care about, that we don't care about. So that's why I give the plot a 2 out of 5. They really do try, but the acting is so bad, it's hard to really take the plot seriously. Because if you think of the original film, um, it's a pretty simple plot too, but I thought it was a lot more interesting of a dynamic than we get here. So that's why I gave it a 2 out of 5. All right, let's move on to acting. So the acting, I also gave it a 2 out of 5. It was so bad and so cheesy. The coupled picture there, they're like, oh, wow, we got to do this. It was so B movie, um, which can be forgivable, but when you compare it to the original had, funny characters, but they had some pretty serious and good actors there. I don't know. I think when Carl Langley Jr., I think that's who it was, who was in charge of the Universal Monster movies when the Lameleys were in charge. I think he had a better concept and better idea of Universal Monster movies. I think once the 40s and 50s rolled around, they just became these cheap B movies that never really live up to the originals. Now, I'm not the hugest fan of Revenge of the Creature, but I do think, or excuse me, the Creature from Black Lagoon, the first movie of this franchise. Um, but I do see how that movie was trying to be a return to the form. This movie just feels right back into the sequels of like Son of Dracula is a terrible movie, and I like Son of Frankenstein, but House of Frankenstein, very cheap, very low budget movies. This movie fits right in with that, and I think the acting does not help it at all. That's why I gave it a 2 out of 5. All right, let's go to set design. So I'll be honest, I thought it looked pretty good. I gave it a 3 out of 5, but I do think it was a mistake having the creature be in white water tanks. There's a scene where, or it's in black and white. I don't know if it was actually white or not, but having him in these tanks in Florida, you could obviously tell it's a costume. He needs to be in scenes kind of like this that were in the movie, in a couple of the scenes of it, surrounded by fish or surrounded by vegetation, right? So he could blend in with it, and you can kind of darken it so that you don't notice that it's actually a costume. It was so obviously a costume in many of the scenes that it really took me out of it, and it felt really cheap, especially when you compare it to the original. The original suit looked a lot better. This one, it felt a bit lesser, not as detailed and not as good. So that's why I gave it a 3 out of 5. All right, for cinematography, I gave it a 2. I thought it looked really cheap, especially compared to the original, like the underwater scenes. I think it's cool that they had cameras and whatnot to do it, like pictured here. It just didn't look very well, though. The best scene is at the very beginning when he's in the lake. That's the best part of it. Or I guess I think he's in the Amazon River. But once we're in Florida, once we're in I guess it's like an aquarium. It just feels very cheap to me. Um, yeah, that's why I gave it a 2, because the monster looks a lot better when he's in kind of scenarios like this, or where there's darkness around him, because it's a suit, right? We want to make it look as creepy and as eerie as possible. That's why I gave it a 2 out of 5. Okay, for the music. So the music, I gave it a 2 out of 5. I thought it was loud and obnoxious, not scary at all. Um, to me, if you have a monster movie, you need to have music that sets the tone. The music here just kind of irritated me. It was just like, I think it's similar to the original. Um, I can't remember if that was what the original score was like. It might have been the same one, but I was not a fan of it. I was pretty annoyed by it. That's why I gave it a 2 out of 5. It was not menacing or intimidating at all. It was just loud and obnoxious. Okay, so my overall score is a 2.2 out of 5, which is a 44% on Criticless. Now let me break down my score. Graphic language, none. There's no graphic language. Violence, there's some mild action, and there's a scene where he pulls down a couple people and drowns them. It's very, very tame, though. Very cheesy, very fake looking. Nudity, sexual content, just some kissing, mild, very mild romance. Political bias, none. Family friendly, very much so. Although I think kids would be bored of it. I don't think it'd be that entertaining. The creature might be scary to them, but I'd be pretty bored because I was pretty bored myself. It's not a super entertaining film. Which goes to entertainment value. I thought it was very dull. The most exciting scenes are in the water with the creature, and even those scenes look very cheesy. And I mentioned the water tank they were in. It just looked very cheap. I didn't like it at all, especially compared to the original. The original, they're in. It's a set, but they're in like the jungle. They're underwater, right? They try to make it look like real vegetation and whatnot. This one just felt such like a lesser film. You could definitely tell they had budget constraints, and so yeah, not a fan of that. Um, so overall, would I recommend this movie? No, stick to the first one. Don't even bother with this. There's only one interesting fact about the movie. This is the first film that Clint Eastwood had a role in. He's not a main character or anything. He's a background actor, and he has like, I don't know, 30 seconds of screen time talking about like one of his lab rats being eaten by a cat potentially. Very, very short scene. If you want to see it, just check it out on YouTube. Don't even bother watching the whole movie. It's not worth your time. I thought it was a cheesy romance. I thought the costume looked pretty terrible. The acting was pretty terrible. Overall, it's a very mediocre film, especially in comparison to the first. All right. Well, those are my thoughts on Revenge of the Creature from 1955, and that concludes today's movie review.